We now continue with Smurf.
X, I have a horrifying situation that I don't really have a concrete explanation for. Like, I know, but I don't know, if that makes sense. The situation is technically over, but I have no idea if I'm free of it, or if this thing could come back and plague me, or even finish the job. I'm not sure if it's dormant to try and trick me, or if it's really gone and I am free. This all first started when I was about 16 years old. I am now currently 20 years old. It started one random night when I went to sleep. For probably around 5 or 6 months, I had been setting an alarm for myself at around 2 to 3 a.m. in order for me to wake up in the middle of REM sleep. The idea was that I would force myself to write down my dream in a little journal that I kept next to my bed, and then go back to sleep. I was told to do this by a few people online, because it is supposed to help with lucid dreaming. I was obsessed with the idea of lucid dreaming, but had never been able to achieve it before in my life. I wanted to have control over an entire world in my mind and do crazy things. It's one of those things I fantasized about a lot, but was never really ever able to comprehend just from being told. I was desperate to experience it myself. I had one other tactic that I was told works. I would write down an X on my hand or on my wrist, and also a few numbers. The idea being that if I was in a dream, there is a good chance that these marks would not appear, and if they didn't, then it was likely I was dreaming. There is also that other thing, how you can't tell the time in dreams, and I don't know, I guess I just threw them both together. This was the first night I was ever able to lucid dream. When I finally fell asleep, in the dream I was walking to school with my friends. It was wintertime, so the walk to school was pretty dark. Something felt off to me immediately though. There were some woods not far away from my house and on the way to school. There is a shortcut through there that we usually take, but you can walk around them and still make it there. On the way to school, I kept spotting things out of the corner of my eyes. Bushes rustling, the sound of twigs snapping, shadowy figures darting around out of the corner of my eye. Once we got to the entrance to the forest where the shortcut was, I was literally shaking. The dread was rising in my body and it felt so real. I told my friends that I did not want to go in there, that we should not go in there. I told them that something bad would happen if we went inside there. It was at this point I started to realize that I was in a dream and that the lucid dreaming started. I pulled my phone out and inadvertently caught a glimpse of my wrist, and it clicked in my head that none of my pen markings were there. I tried to look at my phone to confirm it, and I could not read any of the text. I knew I was in a dream. At this point, a lot of people get too excited and end up waking themselves up, but that did not happen for me. I think the sheer dread feeling was stopping that. Now that I knew that this was a dream though, I wanted to have some fun. But I had no experience. I had no idea how to control it and do what I wanted to do. The first thing I thought about doing was just flying away, flying into the air, but I couldn't make it happen, no matter how much I thought of it or willed it to happen. It was at this point I realized that all of my friends had stopped dead in their tracks and were just staring at me in this weird semicircle that they had formed. I told them to stop being stupid and that I knew we were in a dream, so it did not matter anymore. The second these words left my mouth, they all just started cackling. Like, really intensely. This really intense, almost aggressive laughter. And then they started to inch closer to me. I asked them what the hell was wrong with them, and tried to step away and out of the circle, but I felt someone grab me from behind. Bear in mind that every single sensation, every single feeling, it all feels exactly like real life to me. It is completely indistinguishable from me, and it is messing with my head. I tried to squirm, and managed to pull my arms free, but one of my buddies punches me in the stomach, and it winds me. Again, this feels so insanely real. I instantly just drop to the floor, and can barely even breathe. They have rope now. I have no idea from where, but I guess we are in a dream. They start binding my arms and my legs, and then pick me up. They start to carry me into the woods, and no amount of squirming or screaming is helping me. I tried to bite the hands of one of them. I feel my teeth sink in and hit something that feels gooey, and I see the red start to trickle. They don't even make a sound or flinch, but one of them punches me in the face so hard that a small part of my tooth chipped off. Eventually, we ended up reaching this clearing in the forest. It was lit up by these torches that were tall and spaced around the clearing. There was something in the center of all of this. Surrounded by these stone benches and torches, there was some kind of stone slab. They carried me toward it and placed me onto it. Just before they did, I caught a glimpse of some kind of symbol. They had these wooden peg-type things spaced around it, and they bound me to them so that my arms and legs were stretched as far as they would go. I thought I was going to split in two, and I swear I could feel my nutsack ripping. No one else showed up. It was just my friends, and they did this strange ritual I don't even know how to describe. Some chanting that was just a series of grunts and some kind of dance. The more noise they made, the louder they got, the more the sky darkened, and the more this grey fog started to form above my head. In the fog, I saw something start to form. This face. Not a human face. It looked like the face of a demon. Horns, long and sharp teeth, but instead of ears, there were just these long things that came out of where they would be that looked just like bone. It started just as an image in fog, but before my eyes it started to gain color and to become solid. And before long the head was fully formed and started to pull itself out of the fog. It used its teeth to almost tear a hole in the fog before then pulling up some arms and climbing out of the hole that it ripped through. It looked like something out of an old cartoon. It sounds like some kind of insane trip, and I don't know how to properly describe it. Once the thing, this demon, had fully formed itself, my friends just dropped dead on the spot. They looked like they had the life drained from them. Their faces were all sunken in, and they were down almost just to bones. The demon lingered over me and stared directly at me. At this point, I could feel the wetness that had formed below me in a puddle. My eyes were streaming without me even doing anything. It said my damn name and told me that I was marked. He told me that I had been chosen long ago, but that it needed a way to reach me, whatever that means. And then it said that all it needed to do was to leave its mark, and then it would be done. I am squirming and shaking at this point, and trying to break free, but it is impossible. The thing bends down, places one pointy and curled claw-like finger onto my chest. I forgot to mention, but they stripped me almost naked, and drew the number 3 but backwards onto my right nipple. It burned. I had never felt any kind of pain like it. It didn't even bleed. It was like the wound cauterized itself. Then it told me it would be seeing me again, and my vision went black. The second I woke up, I screamed and shouted for my parents. They shouted at me for hours. They made fun of me for wetting the bed at such a big age. My dad took me outside and beat my ass until it was raw. They told me if I woke them up again with stupid nonsense, that it would be worse the next time. That's the thing that scared me the most though. I had proof. When I woke up, and I know this sounds insane, but I still had the mark from the dream. It wasn't fresh like it was in the dream. It was like a pure white/silver and a little bit bumpy, like when a burn scar is really old. I showed them, and they slapped me and told me that harming myself for sympathy was going too far. I even still had the chip in my tooth. I noticed it when they slapped me. It was only a really tiny one, but I knew at that point they did not care. It was like this for a while. I made a note of all of the dreams, but it would be much too long to type every single one here. These early dreams were sporadic. They would always be in places that made sense, places I frequented, places and situations where it would take me a little while to spot the signs of a dream at first. But every single time, even without trying to anymore, they would become lucid. But I never had any power or control. Most people when they lucid dream will start flying or spawn something in or go on crazy adventures. All I got was awareness and just feeling pain and sensations really realistically. And at the end of every single dream, or sometimes before, I would see that thing again. I would know before it even appeared, because that scar near my nipple would start to burn. I would say I experienced this for around about 2 years in total, until I was around 18 years old. I got used to it. The little nicks and cuts that would follow me into real life. At one point, I started to convince myself that I caused them myself by scratching at myself while sleeping. That was the only way I could rationalize it in my head. I had just gotten a new job around this time, fresh out of high school. I was broke, so I was still living with my parents. It was just a shitty job at a gas station out in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't even drive, so I had to bum a ride there and back, unless I wanted to work for hours in the cold. I turned up from my shift as usual, but it was even more barren than usual. I think I went a full 4 hours without seeing a single person until the shitty, run-down hatchback truck that looked to be 1,000,000 years old pulled in. It's weird because he just sat in his car for about 30 minutes without even moving a muscle. I was worried it might have been a tweaker coming here and looking to cause trouble. We have a policy where at a certain time, I am not allowed to step outside and the customers have to pay for a window for safety. This guy steps out of his truck and starts waving at me in a kind of come here motion. I tilted my head in confusion before shaking it to say no. This guy looked quite old and did not look a threat. He was wearing faded blue jeans and had a Stetson on. He must have been maybe 50 or 60 years old. He was definitely wrinkly. He walked pretty hastily over to the entrance to the gas station and knocked on it pretty loudly. I walked up and mouthed to him to come on over to the window. He did, and I asked him what the problem was, and he said that the pump was not working. I knew he hadn't even tried it though. I told him as much. Then he said, "Oh yeah, the pump might be working, but I don't know how to work it. Can you come and help me?" I was immediately sketched out and was like, "Nope, sorry, policy says no." Then he started going on and on with this sob story about how he's old and how his hands shake and he will spill it everywhere and waste lots of gas and that it will hurt his hands, blah blah blah. At that point, I just wanted him to shut up, so against my better judgment, I stepped outside. He led me over to his car, and I told him to let me take it from here. I bent down to take off the cap, and the second I turned around, I felt something being jammed into my mouth and down my throat. Something metal. I could taste gasoline. The old man had jammed the hose from the pump down my throat and was squeezing it so that I was swallowing big amounts of gasoline. I could feel the vomit instantly rising out of me, which barely came out and sprayed over the hose. I tried grabbing his hands, but I could not budge them, not even one bit. With just one hand free, he had me pinned against the truck, and he just starts laughing. I thought I had run into some maniac and was going to die right there and then. It wasn't until I was crouched down there, gasoline pumping down my throat, vomit and blood and who knows what else spilling out of me, that I caught sight of the digital display on the pump. I couldn't read it. The numbers were warped and did not make sense. I was in another lucid nightmare. The old man noticed that I noticed, and he told me that it took me long enough. He pulled the hose out of my mouth and gave me a reprieve while he began his monstrous transformation that involved the old man's skin ripping and bursting, his eyeballs inflating and exploding, while parts of that demon thing started to emerge from his body. It was like something bursting out of a cocoon, except it was a human body. I was still on the floor at this point and barely able to even breathe. Within a couple of seconds, this thing had stuck all 5 of its claws into my abdomen. It started to speak to me, to gloat and laugh at me. He told me it was finally strong enough, and that it finally had enough control in the space. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. He told me he was going to finish the job, that he was going to take full control. He told me he was going to kill me. He jabbed the claws on his other hand into the opposite side of my stomach, and I let out a shriek. I screamed louder than I thought was possible. I screamed so loud that I actually felt the earth start to shake, like an earthquake had started. I saw the sky and the air around me start to shake, and for the first time ever, I saw this thing look concerned. And just like that, I was awake again. It only got worse from here on. After that dream, they started to happen every single night, whereas before, they might have been once a week maximum, but usually much less often. Every single dream went like this. I would be lulled into thinking that I was awake and safe, and then he would appear and try to kill me. I started trying to prepare, to be ready to run, to be ready to hide, but this started to really affect my life. I was tired all of the time. The cuts and injuries on my body were starting to become more frequent, and I eventually ended up losing my job. I was on the way to work on that last day, and I fucking swear I saw this thing in real life this time. It could have been my brain making things up from the stress, but I swear I saw him hiding around a corner and peeking out at me. When I saw this, I rushed into work in a panic where my manager was waiting for me. He told me I was a wreck and not reliable anymore, and he sent me home. The dreams got to be too much. I was so tired all of the time, and I was getting closer and closer to being seriously harmed with every single dream that passed. After a week or so of this experience, I started trying to keep myself awake. I bought tons of energy drinks and caffeine pills and just anything that would stop me from sleeping. I would stay down on the couch and try to watch TV all night. I would slap myself to keep myself from dropping off. I used ice baths, etc. At one point, I bought a taser and figured out it was the most effective thing for me. Just one zap every so often kept me awake much longer than any slap. It hurt, but it worked. I felt like a crazy person. I must have looked insane. My parents hated me, but even they were growing worried. I was told if I did not have a job within a week, I was being thrown out. They told me I needed to see a doctor and to get some serious help. I just brushed them off. I couldn't focus on anything except for staying awake. I think I managed around 50 hours or so. By this point, I was hallucinating like crazy. Kept thinking I could see the ghost of my dead grandfather. I kept hearing voices whispering in my ear that I know were not there. I am laying on the couch, and it's getting harder to keep my eyes open. I'm having microsleeps. My eyes are staying closed for longer each and every single time. I'm having almost full-on dreams in what seems like seconds. The last time I opened my eyes, just before I fell asleep, I swore I saw that thing. That demon standing over me. Standing behind my TV, almost the same height as my room, just staring at me. The dream did not even last very long. I was on the couch but just suddenly did not feel tired anymore. It took approximately 5 seconds before the alarm bells were ringing in my head, but it was already too late. It wasn't like the other times with elaborate chases or me being tortured. I felt 2 bony hands clamp around my face before my body started to vibrate and my vision went dark. And that was all I saw. Just this blackness, but I was almost still conscious. Just staring at an empty void. It wasn't like when you close your eyes and you start to see shapes and colors and patterns dancing around. Just pure blackness, but I knew I was seeing it and I was conscious of it. When I could finally see again, I couldn't even really process what was happening. There was a nurse over me that I think was changing something. The second that she saw me awake, she called for a doctor. It's hard to describe, but I just felt so peaceful, tranquil, like I was 100 pounds lighter, like this insane weight had been lifted off of me. It took a few hours, but my parents eventually came to visit me. They told me how my mom had come down in the night for some water and found me on the couch mid-seizure. I apparently had vomit streaming from my mouth, and she thought that I had taken some drugs and was overdosing. She noticed I had cuts all over my hands and that one of my fingernails was missing and assumed I had been harming myself. The rest of that year was just a blur for me. It almost felt like going through the motions, but not even in a bad way. Even now I just feel so peaceful. Like anything could happen to me and I would be okay with it. I'm sorry my experience is not more interesting or in-depth. In truth, my arms are aching from typing it, and I'm glad I didn't share every single dream. I'm sure it sounds ridiculous and like baby's first creepypasta, but what happened to me was real. Or real in the sense that I actually went through and felt all of that. I don't really have any explanation for any of it, aside from weird dream logic, which does not explain my real-life injuries, and especially not the coma. Any Anons have any theories or ideas? I have not lucid dreamed since that happened. It was like I couldn't turn them off, but ever since the coma, I don't remember my dreams at all anymore. I don't even know if I'm having dreams at all. Was it just a demon trying to ruin my life? Did it think it killed me and just decided to leave? Am I just a schizo and did my brain make it all up? Anything at all would help me feel some kind of closure. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Let me set the scene for you. My grandma's property is set about 2 miles down the road from her house, way out in the country. That is where you enter the first gate by the road, to start up the extremely narrow dirt road up the mountain. It kind of winds up the side of the mountain until you get to the top. It's about a 15-minute drive in total. At the top, it is all fenced in. It's a big area with a field at the very bottom. It's on top of a mountain, so it slopes up. That field is fenced in with a wooden fence. The trees outline the field at the bottom of it, and they are very thick and covered in bush. On the field's far right side, there is a coral and very old barn. Up from the field is kind of an open logged area where the road comes through. A block foundation where my grandpa had began to build another cabin, in a really shitty cabin. It was all one room and made of plywood or something. It had one window in the very front, facing away from the field, looking toward the top of the mountain, where there was thin forest. The mountain apexed here, and the fence went on down the hill until it stopped and became thick brush forest, like the bottom of the field on the other side. It was an extremely large fenced-in area, and the thin forest stretched on forever. You could not see one side of the fence from the other in any direction. I am just guessing, but I'd say 50 acres or more of mountaintop. They kept it to keep their cows in the pasture field area, which was large but surrounded by trees and a wooden fence. It was surrounded by trees in the form of a G, and the little circle inside the G was sort of a sinkhole that you could not see from the main dirt road. Now that you have an idea of how the area looked, I will get on with what I have to say. My grandpa died of lung cancer. My grandma, as hardworking as she is really small, and able to only tend her yard and garden, so someone had to feed the cows and check on them. I usually drove down after work, checked on her, and then drove up there, grabbed some feed from the barn, and feed the cows. One night I got off work a little late, and it was getting dark, so I drove straight up to the mountain. When I got to the top to get out and open the gate into the area, I heard a cow mooing really loud. I did not think anything of it, since they usually did this, but this was really loud and sounded off. When I pulled up to the pasture, the cows were nowhere to be seen, which was weird, because they usually come hauling ass when they heard me coming. I put the feed in the trough and hollered for them, but they did not come. I figured they were just in the non-visible area of the field, remember the G-shape, but I had to go check. I went to my truck and grabbed a flashlight since it was getting dark and it was a large field. As I walked down to where I thought they were, I kept hearing that loud moo that sounded weird, coming from different directions, but it didn't deter my path, since I was sure they were in that part of the field. I rounded the corner and down in the sinkhole. They were all standing there, huddled up, and quiet. As I walked up to them, I tried to shoo them to the barn, but they would not budge, and that's when I heard another moo. It was coming from the woods at the top of the sinkhole. I thought one had gotten out of the fence and was in distress. I was not really freaked out at this point, so I decided to investigate and retrieve the cow. I did not do a head count, because I didn't really know how many they had, so I walked up the hill of the sinkhole where I thought the moo came from, but around the time I got to the top, I heard it again, coming from another side of the field. I walked over, hopped the fence, and shined my light through the dense woods. I was shaky from being in the woods during the dark, but I wasn't really scared. I walked back a bit in the woods and I saw it. The cow, standing in a little clearing, facing away from me, black and white. It looked like a cow, but it was sitting down like a dog, and it looked really sickly. If you've ever seen a cow that was skinny, it looked like that. I thought it might have hurt its back legs or something, so I strolled up to it. Then I noticed something as I got closer. Its hooves were not hooves. It had hands on its front legs, long thin fingers with fleshy, brittle-looking fingernails. Not being able to explain what I had saw, I called out to it, in hopes it was just the dark screwing with me. I shouted out, "Come over here and eat." At that point, about 20 yards away from me in the clearing, the thing stood up on two legs and turned around. Its skin was colored like a black and white cow, but its body was nothing like it. It was tall and thin, with a strange, flat face, large mouth, and sunken-in dark eyes. I hauled ass out of the woods, tripping and stumbling over everything, with my heart pumping so hard I could not hear anything else. When I got to the fence, I leaped straight over it and sprinted through the field to my truck. I got in, locked the doors, started the truck, and grabbed my .380 compact from the glove box. I backed my truck down most of the thin dirt road until I got to the gate. I turned around on a steep hill, almost flipping my truck, now facing the gate. I looked around my truck with the flashlight. I hurried and got out to unlatch the gate and swing it wide open, and on the short way back to my truck, just inside the forest behind me, I hear my own voice, saying what I called out to the cow, coming back to me. I got in my truck and scrambled down the mountain without closing the gate. Then, after what seemed like 200, I arrived 2 miles away at my grandma's house. I told her everything, and she just sat there calmly and said, "Sounds like a trickster." I took this as her saying it was someone playing a joke on me and angrily left. I learned later that local Native Americans called shapeshifters/skinwalkers tricksters. She sold the cows, then the land, and I never returned. I tried to pretend it did not happen. I've seen a ghost before, and had a friend with me that also saw this. I don't know what to make of that thing, though. Bunkum Cave, Tennessee. Be me. When this happened, I was in the deep woods. This happened around 2011 to around 2012 in Byrdstown, Tennessee. I am at a family reunion weekend where we all get together every year where my family is from. I have some free time with my younger brother and ex-girlfriend. We decide to go to the cave nearby. It's called Bunkum Cave, and we want to explore there. Me and my brother have been a bunch of times, but never went in too deep. We were either too scared or just didn't have the time. Today was different though. We wanted to see just how far it went. I had heard rumors the cave went all the way from Tennessee to Kentucky, since Byrdstown is close to the state border, but we doubted we'd make it that far. We go into the cave around midday. It was pretty hot out, as it usually is in the Tennessee summer. We had lights, backup lights, and batteries, because we would probably need them. We head in. The temperature drops about 20 degrees within 100 feet of going in. Actually feels pretty good. My ex-GF and bro and I are having fun. The cave is pretty and has a constant stream of water in the bottom. About a quarter of a mile in, the cave begins to narrow, like really narrow. We have to crawl on our stomachs to get through some parts. We even get wet. It's really cold now. There is so much water vapor that you can sometimes see your own breath. I keep going. I would estimate we're probably about half a mile in now. The cave splits left and right. We go left because you always go left. There are some tight spots here and there, but nothing we have not encountered before. We get through a narrow part to a fairly large chamber. I see something weird. It's a mason jar, just sitting on a rock. I look inside of it. There is this unholy insect creature captured inside. We're all like, what the hell is that? It looked like pig related, but it had fewer legs. It was completely white and partially transparent and much bigger. like 6 to 10 inches bigger. This thing takes up most of the mason jar, and its antennae curl up on the sides of the jar. We freak the hell out for a second but keep on going. My brother was leading when he stopped dead in his tracks and sees nothing with his light shining around the bend. I ask him what it is, and he just says, "Look at this shit." I peek around and there is hundreds of these things on the cave floor, walls, and ceiling, all just sitting silently. If you didn't have a light, you probably would not have noticed they were there. We instantly stop and look at all of these things in awe and panic. They did not even seem to notice where we were or the light shining on them. I'm not sure if they were affected by light or just sound. I am not dealing with that shit, so we hightail it out of there. I have never been back there, but not exactly sure what we found that day. Not sure how those things got that big, since they would need a huge food source to maintain that size.